I'd like to call to order the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners Workshop Meeting for April 14, 2021. Roll call.
President Zipfel.
Here.
Vice President Rogers.
Here.
Commissioner Andrus.
Here.
Commissioner Lees.
Here.
Commissioner Zimmerman.
Here.
We have a lot of volunteers that we're going to recognize tonight, and so this is going to be kind of a large request. Everyone, we're all going to stand for the pledge, but for everyone who volunteered, if you would lead us in the pledge, it's very simple. All you got to do is start, and we follow after you, okay? Ready? Go ahead. So this evening is going to be fun, for sure. Sadly, though, we need to start off on with a moment of silence. Many of you probably know that one of our Hatfield family, Sergeant Dave McCreesh, passed away recently. I think it was at our last meeting. We were doing our best to send him good thoughts. Unfortunately, he lost his battle with cancer. And we want to have a moment of silence to remember him. Those of you know Dave or don't know Dave, he retired after 2017 after spending 27 years serving our community. It really is a terrible loss for our Hatfield family, and he touched so many lives, and we've talked about that at other meetings. So I'd like you to keep him and his family in your thoughts and prayers, and please join me in a standing moment of silence. Pass on our best as a township to Dave's family. So thank you. Couple of items before we get on to our celebratory item, which many of you are here for, which we're excited for, which is first approval of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion for approval of tonight's agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus, second by Commissioner Lees. All in favor of approving tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Citizens' comments. Are there any citizens' comments on agenda items? Okay, not seeing anyone run to the podium. We'll move on to our consent items. Is there a motion to move into the record the consent items that are listed in your agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vice President Rogers, second by Commissioner Zimmerman. I'll call a question. All in favor of moving those consent items into the record, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, those are moved into the record. All right, we have a very special item. Oh, before that, actually, we have a statement. I'm sorry, got ahead of myself. This is a very important statement that the commissioners wanted to make publicly. So I'm going to be careful and read it. It's been carefully crafted, so it shares with the residents our position and support with regard to the Hatfield Asian American community. In Hatfield Township, it's unusual for the commissioners to make public comment on events or issues outside of our township. The reason for that is because we make every effort to remain focused on our primary responsibilities as they relate to Hatfield residents. Those responsibilities generally include public safety, police and fire companies, fixing problem intersections like Cowpath and Orvilla, parks and recreation, aquatic center, public services like plowing and potholes, and the general well-being of our residents. And yet we find ourselves again horrified by the senseless murders of 8 innocent people, 6 of whom were Asian American descent in Georgia on March 16, 2021. As we stated as a board last summer, we will take every step to make sure that we secure equity in our community and dispel racism whenever and wherever we see it or hear of it. We, the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners, are not just against racism, but are anti-racist. According to our local census, Asian Americans account for more than 15% of Hatfield Township, among the highest rate in Montgomery County. And we, the Hatfield Board of Commissioners, stand with and support all of them. Those of you who are familiar with the commissioners and the tenor and tone of the way we govern know that above all else, we expect civility, dignity, and respect for one another. Quite frankly, we demand it of ourselves and we ask of it of our residents. As a township, our commitment to being a welcoming and inclusive community for all will continue as we ask all residents to support one another and report any hate crimes to Hatfield Township Police Department immediately. Signed, the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners. Thank you. All right. Fun part, which is what everyone is here for. I'm going to go down to the podium. We have a few things to share with everyone. Just in time? I literally stood up, walked over, and I said, "I've seen everyone, and yet where's Mac?" Mac, you are perfectly timed. Literally, they would call you in all industries a just-in-time provider. And tonight, we're going to thank you and a number of volunteers that are with us tonight. By the way, we are thrilled that the kids are here tonight. We don't get township at township meetings. Sometimes they can be a little boring, maybe not so exciting. Ask Tina; she attends all of them. And and when we get people to show up, we're thrilled. But boy, I have to tell you, when we get kids, it's like a holiday morning. It's like Christmas morning or something. So that's great. So what we're this recognition is with regard to Dr. Mayank Amin from Skipback Pharmacy and representatives from BAPS Temple for offering COVID vaccinations to the Hatfield community. That's what we put in our agenda, but let me expand upon that a little bit. Tonight is about us honoring some what we've called Hatfield heroes. And we had some recognition of a Hatfield hero just a couple of weeks ago, and we're thrilled to have some Hatfield heroes again with us tonight. And I would say probably some of the most significant heroes that we've had ever, if not the most ever, given the pandemic and everything that's gone on in our country and our community here. And so we have a few people to thank. First is obviously Mayank. He goes by Dr. Mac. And obviously the owner and advocate, chief patient advocate at Skipback Pharmacy. He's kind of your vanguard, your spear at the tip, right? But he's got volunteers here tonight and just so many others that have been helping over the last few weeks and months with vaccinations, that it's incredible. And so tonight is not just about recognizing him. His humility, by the way, he told me, please don't make a big deal about it, so I'll take him at his word, and we'll thank others as well. But tonight, I think we have 16 volunteers with us, and we're going to talk about you a little bit. And we're going to come up here so you get recognized as well. And after tonight, we're going to get a proclamations for each one of you as we get your information, share it with you, and you can have it. Whether you choose to put it on your wall or not, that's up to you. But you'll have a proclamation from the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners. And then last, there's another group, a couple of gentlemen, and then also a group that they are associated with, Kamlesh Patel and Shailesh Thacker, and the entire BAPS community. So I'm kind of identifying them as the leaders of that organization that are here this evening, but it goes deeper than just the two of them. I know both of them very well, known both of them for many years, thrilled to be their friend and have them here. But boy, the BAPS community is really, it's our best group in the township. You do some wonderful things, and we're going to talk about that a bit. So let's talk about the local, some of the volunteers. As I call your name, there's a lot of you, so maybe we have you just stand for the moment, and then, Aaron, what do you think? Should we maybe move them in here because there's 16 folks, or just have them? I think 16 people behind me is probably a little too much given the pandemic, right? So let's start off with Mac. Why don't you join us first and come on up? I don't think he needs, that's right. I don't think he needs much of an introduction. I'll talk about him a little bit later, but he's probably the most well-known Hatfield resident maybe ever at this point. And so we're thrilled for everything that you've done. Mitch Rothholz. I just saw Mitch roll his eyes. And that And that eye roll told me everything I need to know about probably the rest of you, which is thank you for having me here, but why are you sending me up front? And the truth is, and some of you have probably attended meetings and others haven't, this is a common phrase we say. We like to thank people by mildly embarrassing them in public. And so yes, each of you is going to come up front. Next is Christine Jacobson. Jennifer Mandillo. Who I'm recognizing. I've known her husband for many years. He knows my brother real well. So, Courtney Marengo. Lindsay Walco. Charlene Prutzer. It just dawned on me what we're going to do is we're going to take this side of the room and literally just move it to that side of the room. And yet that's okay because now they're standing and they're getting their picture taken. Stephanie Glover. Kayur Patel. Isabel Lawler. Erica Mabry. Deepun Amin. Abha Patel. Manish Patel. Anya Patel. Not here? Okay. That's Manish's daughter, but we'll mention her again in a moment. Pranjal Patel. So what are these fantastic people forced to stand up here and be embarrassed about? Let me give you a little summary as you all take your photographs. They, along with 700 volunteers, Mac, is that correct? Roughly about 700 volunteers? They have administered COVID-19 vaccinations to almost 20,000 people in our region and over 500 people in Hatfield Township. You're looking at the core group that makes that engine run, and these people are, I'm going to probably say it a couple more times over the next couple of minutes, you are truly the definition of heroes. Whether you realize it or not, you are truly heroes to our Hatfield residents. For many of these people, it's probably a second full-time job, or maybe a first full-time job, right? Unpaid, doing it just because out of the goodness of their heart. And we, as we all know, I don't have to explain, we are living in a time when without vaccinations, our lives would continue to be upside down in ways physically, emotionally, and otherwise that we just can't articulate clearly enough. And yet we have people who not only have the wherewithal, the skill, the ability, the science, the understanding, but most important, the willingness to volunteer and give of themselves to come out and actually make sure that the rest of us are taken care of. Quite frankly, I cannot think of a better definition of what a volunteer is and what a hero is, and we can't thank you enough for that, okay? And I learned, just a couple more minutes, I know some of you are dying, but I learned this afternoon that each of you has something of an assigned role or responsibility. And so it's, when I said that this is the core engine of the group, I just want to point out, if I got this correct, I want to point out some of their primary responsibilities. Mitch Rotholz is vaccine management and safety, right, Mitch? I generalized a little bit, so, kind of maybe all-inclusive. I'm sure that you are all probably doing everything, but Christine Jacobson, pharmacy technician, right? Jennifer Mandillo, vaccinator management. I hear that she is in charge of keeping all the vaccines safe which I have to tell you, when I learned that and I read that, I said, ooh, there's a responsibility. So, actually, he didn't give me that information. You can't blame him for that. I won't tell you later either. I'm not going to tell you who it was. Courtney Marengo, Event Planning, Volunteer Management, and Communications. Lindsay Walco, Health Support and Community Outreach. Charlene Prutzer, Community Outreach and Communications. And by the way, if you don't know what communications really means, it means that there are people who call, they get their first shot. And then they administer, let's say, 1,000 shots, right? And that means then somehow instead of 1,000 follow-up phone calls of when's my next shot, there's 2,000 phone calls. Because, and one of you may laugh and smile at this, because first it's the person who got their shot, and then it's their son of the person who got the shot who said, did my mom get this right? And so these people, communication is as significant as as one of the most significant parts of the entire process. So, did I say Lindsay already? Okay, I thought so. I just want to, and Charlene? I didn't want to miss anyone. Stephanie Glover, Registration, Invites, and Communication. Kira Patel, Database, Registration, Technical Support. I heard you've been there since the beginning. He has that. You need a vacation. You all need a vacation, but he needs a vacation. Isabel Lawler, Volunteer Management and Vaccine Support. Erica Mabry, Pharmacy and Clinic Vaccine Support. Deepun Amin, and I know he's dying right now that I put him up there. He is, I've described, or with some help, as the project lead. He does everything along with, if you don't know this, his brother. And his brother, if you don't know, is Mac, is Dr. Mac. And I'm sure many of you in the room knew, but you have to also understand, now I'm going to really scare you. We taped this, and this is on television, so now any nervousness you've probably gone through, don't worry, we're not going to make you speak. But so, the brothers are really, really doing a fantastic job. The whole family is, it really is good. Abha Patel, future pharmacist, I hear. Couple of years left. Lead vaccine drawer. He's getting on-hands experience for sure. There's no doubt about that. Manish Patel, overall vaccine lead. We've known each other many, many years as well. Fantastic guy. Oh, Anya Patel is not here. Pranjal Patel, patient temperature lead. That means he's the first person you walk into when you walk in the door, and he is the face of the organization when you walk in. So I want to thank each and every one of you. I know that we've probably gone on than many of you really wish, and I struggled with trying to find words any more than what I already said, but I'm just going to leave it at this. Oh, we have a question. Oh, I'm getting there. At this point, I'm pretty sure everyone in the room will have been recognized. There is that's going to happen. Gary, yes, that's going to happen. But the best thing I can tell you is that we're thrilled that you came out tonight, so we had an opportunity to say thank you. Hopefully tonight was fun for you, right? A little bit different, and you at least got to see some smiling faces in a different fashion, in a different way. And on behalf of roughly 18,000 residents in Hatfield Township, the entire board, all the staff, everyone, we can't say thank you enough, so we greatly appreciate it. Thank you. All right, I'm going to put you out of your misery. You can sit down, except for Mac. For the moment. I know what you asked me. And yet, as much as he's the most, I've known Mac for, it's got to be about 10 years now, right? Roughly. And so as humble as he is, and he said, look, celebrate my team, it's impossible to not share with the community, right? Not just the people in this room, but share in the community what this young man has done. He's started his own pharmacy at a young age. He's run, seems like he's got like a couple of different companies that he's run over the years. He's had this fantastic professional career. He's a fantastic person if you've met him. He's got a wonderful wife. He's expecting a child. And this is where I start to speak about his family a little bit. I've known Gary probably for about 10 years as well. And I don't know his wife, Rashmi, as well, but I believe that I've met her. There she is. Oh, I recognize, there she is. And so while I've got your son up there waiting, the truth is that as I get older and my kids are getting older, I start to become more partial to the parents, right? You have a fantastic family. And every day life is a struggle, there's no doubt about it. But you have two fantastic young men who are literally helping save the world. And on behalf of the Hatfield Township, to the two of you, we say thank you. Thank you for sharing your sons with us, both of them. So last, with regard to Mac, no. I read something that he wrote, and I had to pass it on, and then I'll let him off the hook. I was most impressed when I read that he had given credit for much of this to the volunteers first, his family, the BAPS community, and his guru, and that he considers himself a Das, a servant of the community, and that the S on his chest. Yeah, for us, maybe we recognize it as Superman. For him, it's really service. And what an appropriate thing for him to be able to wear, not only for people to enjoy it, but also to share with them his gifts. We've got a proclamation for him. We'll share the proclamations with the others when we can. And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners desire to recognize Dr. Mayank Amin, owner of Skip Back Pharmacy and longtime community partner. And whereas Dr. Amin and his team of over 700 volunteers has administered the COVID-19 vaccination to almost 20,000 people in the region, including over 500 Hatfield Township and Borough residents. And whereas Dr. Amin recently partnered with the BAPS Temple, located in Hatfield Township, to hold a vaccination event for the Hatfield community. And whereas Dr. Amin is also very well known in the community for donning a Superman costume, to help children overcome their fear of receiving medicine or other vaccinations, and now therefore be it proclaimed, in accordance with the foregoing, that the Board of Commissioners of Hatfield Township does hereby endorse this proclamation as recognition to one of Hatfield's heroes, Dr. Mayank Amin, for his commitment and dedication to making Hatfield Township and our region a safer and healthier and happier place. Proclaimed and presented this 14th day of April 2021, Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners. Thank you very much.
I feel like I'm here making a graduation speech today, with no advance notice, of course. Today was something special, obviously, with the invitation to bring our team here. They are honestly our community's true heroes. Little does anyone else in the world know, but I might be the face on the television, but these people are the ones that are the real superheroes. When I'm at home at nighttime, at midnight, day before a clinic, I might be the one that's getting ready for the interview that, oh, who knows, NBC or ABC or Live with Kelly and Ryan might be interviewing me the next day. But there are a team of volunteers that could be away from their children for many days, could have spent 20 hours the night before. They didn't get paid for it. This isn't a job for them. They did this because they love their community. And that's what makes our clinics very unique and why the world has come to know about it. There's thousands of clinics happening throughout the world. But why was the one that our vaccine clinic recognized? It's because it's 100% a volunteer-run effort. Obviously, it wouldn't have happened without the support of our leaders in our community, whether it was President Tom Zipfel, some of our representatives, or even our community members saying, you know what, we've seen so much negativity in the press, we've seen so much negativity on social media. From the first shot that someone came to get a vaccine at one of our clinics, we told them, standing outside in 8 inches of snow with a mudslide running outside a skipback firehouse, saying, we know it's freezing out here, we know you're cold, but these people that are behind these doors absolutely love you. They don't have a vaccine. They're not here because they get a vaccine. They're not volunteering for any personal motive. You can tell when someone gets paid to do something because they're looking at their clock and say, I got to get out of here. My time's up. Versus these volunteers who are up till 4 o'clock in the morning responding nicely to emails and phone calls. At some point, when you hear the same person call 18 times, you think that, okay, just forget it. Delete this message and not get back to them. Charlene, she is a school teacher. After school, since the first day that we got the vaccine and we had 800 voicemails, she's responded and listened to all of those voicemails. And there's stories of heartbreak, stories of patients with cancers, people that are dying, pleading, begging for their life to get a vaccine. And if I had to personally read and listen to all those messages, I would probably be depressed. But heroes like Charlene are there reading, listening, and responding to every single person with care. There's people like Stephanie and Courtney. They are not employed currently. Now imagine the amount of hours that somebody who's not employed and not getting paid would spend. They spend close to 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and they have kids. I don't know how they do it. I don't even have a kid yet, and I can't even do it. But there's people like them that have literally volunteered every day, and the thousands of emails, calls, and everything that there is to make these clinics happen, they happen because of folks like this. I could literally make a movie and a documentary, and there will be one day a documentary about this. People think I'm crazy. Clearly, I'm crazy enough to wear a Superman costume. When I say there will be a documentary about this, there will be a documentary about this one day. But the bigger story here is that we hope that our story continues to inspire other communities throughout the country, the world, that regardless of the color of your skin, your age, your creed, religion, we're all one family. We were at Trinity Lutheran Church in Lansdale right on Easter weekend, and a few of the members from the BAPS temple were there as well. I personally didn't want to hold a clinic that weekend because I thought I need to be respectful of the other religions and the folks that come. But the pastor over there actually is like, Mac, this is absolutely amazing. That look, there's people that are Hindu here. There's people that are Indian. There's people that are Spanish, African American, and everyone's working together. This is the message of God. The message of everyone working together, regardless of your own preferences, because we have a bigger mission here, and that mission is to care for our community. So at the end of the day, when you look at it, there is no I, there's no me in this. It's a team, and without the team, none of this would have been possible. And we're so thankful for all the support that everyone's given to us. We hope that this mission continues forward, not just with the vaccines, but that this brings our communities together, not just now, but forever. Thank you again.
I would say that was perfectly said, right? And actually a very good transition to our recognition not only of two gentlemen who represent BAPS, but themselves as well. So I would like, because it's not as big a group, Kamlesh Patel and Shailesh Thacker to come up, stand behind me if you would. So they are here tonight for a couple of reasons. First is, I know that they help MAC in immeasurable ways. There's no doubt about that. But equally, and maybe in some ways more importantly, you're looking at some of the leaders, two of the great leaders of BAPS. And I mentioned it earlier before, but I'm going to get into a little bit more specifics now. This is hands down the best community that we have in Hatfield Township. Let me just tell you, if you don't know this already, some of the things that they've done. And this is not just once in a while. They have their annual health and wellness day. I've been to it. It's been going on for many years. Sadly, the only one that's ever didn't happen was the one because of the pandemic. And every year they have an enormous charity walk. And there's hundreds of people that show up, and they raise thousands of dollars. And they've given that money to Calmer Fire Company, Hatfield Fire, the Nature Conservancy, the Mitzvah Circle, all in Hatfield, and a number of Make-A-Wish. I remember, I think it was one of my first years Make-A-Wish was there. Men on Main Street. So these are all local organizations that they have given this money to. And if you've ever been a part of it, first off, you should. And second is, if you've ever been a part of it, you walk up and you have this feeling of kind of excitement, and everything feels good. It's almost like going to Disney World, if you've ever been there. Everyone's happy in Disney World. Everyone's happy during that charity walk. And these are the types of things that this community has done for us. And Kamlesh and I talked about it earlier today, and I told him I was going to mention this. The importance of this, not only to have just recognized BAPS, but these two, is that they're representative of a community that not only gives back, they understand what the needs are, but going back to the kids are in the room. We've mentioned this many times. They are representative. They are the foundation to show these young men and women of what to do when they get older, when it's their turn to lead, when it's their turn to volunteer. And this community in particular, they've got it down. I've got to tell you, everyone, top to bottom, youngest to oldest, doesn't matter. Everyone is part of that community. Everyone shares. They respect one another. They respect the township in ways that are just, immeasurable in many ways. And there's really not a very good way to describe it other than they are hands down our best community. Because of that, I'm going to read the proclamation, Kamlesh's proclamation. We have one for you as well. It reads as follows. Whereas the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners desire to recognize Kamlesh Patel, a local business owner and member of BAPS Temple in Hatfield Township. Whereas Kolzminster Patel was instrumental in organizing and planning a COVID-19 vaccination event along with Dr. Mayank Amin and members of the BAPS Temple community. Whereas Kolzminster Patel and members from BAPS Temple have been longtime supporters of the Hatfield community. And Kolzminster Patel and members of BAPS Temple have contributed to many local organizations, including the Calmer Fire Company, the Nature Conservancy, and the Mitzvah Circle Foundation. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed, in accordance with the foregoing, that the Board of Commissioners of Hatfield Township does hereby endorse this proclamation as recognition to Kolzminster Patel and the members of the BAPS Temple community for their commitment and dedication to make Hatfield Township and our region a safer and healthier place. Proclaimed and presented this 14th day of April 2021. Thank you to both of you. Thank you to your entire community. Thank you to BAPS. Well done.
As I think Mayank said so much, so whatever I'll say, it's very little. But I'll say just one thing. As Mayank said, in our BAPS Temple also, it's not just two of us. We are also just one part of that little community servant. Everyone who comes there, BAPS charities or temple, they're all volunteers. They are work from their heart. And one reason behind is because our Guru said, in the joy of others lies our own. In the good of others lies our own, right? So the joy of others lies our own. We like to serve to the community, and thanks to actually everyone, and thanks to the Hatfield Township as well for recognizing this. Thank you so much.
Okay, those are our recognitions. The fun part of the meeting, unfortunately, is come to a conclusion. You are all very welcome to stay. You don't need to, don't worry. I know many of you, especially all of you who volunteer and have time away from your families, because I know that that's a big sacrifice that you give. So we'll take a moment or two for those of you who want to step outside. Thank you again, and very well done.
Thank you.
Go.
Oh, okay. Well, then. Oh my God. There'd be 2 minutes left, and I was like, I got a chance. I'm gonna do it. And
Oh, yeah.
thank you again.
Thanks.
Kind of a letdown after that, right? All right, let's move on to our committee reports. Planning and Zoning Committee, Commissioner Rogers.
Thank you. The first item is the WB Home Land Development, the track between Villa and Stewart Drive.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Rogers. This application was discussed in detail at your March 10th meeting, at your workshop meeting. I believe at that point we went through the history of the project, where we stood as far as all of the approvals and all the recommendations went. What has happened since then is that there have been additional stormwater management calculations submitted to Mr. McAdams' office so that the stormwater volume and flow could be checked with the addition of the sidewalk on both sides of the road. If you recall, the original plan only had sidewalk on one side. And the other change that was made was to move the home on Lot 8 approximately 10 to 12 feet further away from the existing homes at the request of some of the neighbors, and I believe some of the commissioners on the night of the 10th recommended that as well. So those are the two changes. Otherwise, the project is still ready for approval, but we didn't want to bring it to you on the 24th of March because we felt that those couple of details still needed to be worked out. So it will be in front of you in 2 weeks for final approval.
Thank you. Any questions?
Hi, folks. Carla D'Alessio, K-A-R-L-A, last name D'Alessio, D'-A-L-E-S-S-I-O. Just because it's been misspelled, and we're 30-year neighbors. I wanted to ask about the 4-to-1 basin design. Will we be holding, since there's plenty of property here, that the basins don't exceed the 4-to-1 ratio? The material in the meeting was back from December 9th, and I'm concerned that this is going to come for preliminary final approval, and we don't really know the impact of the addition of the impervious from the sidewalk. And I'm asking the board to please hold this developer to the 4-to-1 ratio, because I'm struggling to understand, since there's 20-some acres, why they would need to constrain that. And if I'm to be so forward, I think they're doing that because they're trying to maximize the number of homes they're trying to get on that property. And I ask you respectfully to look at the map where this property lies. It's on the west branch there. If we take shortcuts here, so I know I've stood before you and made some unpopular requests. This was with regard to the firehouse, if you remember, because we gave them a waiver on 3-to-1, but they didn't have enough property. Here we do have enough property, and this comes down to how many homes we want to get onto that property. And you have already approved conditional use, so they have large homes on quarter acres, which is not consistent with the rest of the community, but that's fine. I understand not everybody wants that. But I do believe that because of the proximity to the creek, that it would be important to make sure that these basins meet with our stated ordinance maximum of a 4-to-1.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Carla, you done?
There was one other thing
Sure.
as well, if I may.
Sure.
I don't know where we stand on the cartway. So our ordinance, if I understand, and correct me if I'm not, it's 34 feet. What I'm getting at is, when this proposal was presented to the Planning Commission, which is also a group of volunteers, as you know, like you, who volunteer, when WB presented that, they asked for a waiver on the width of the road. Our standard, I believe, is 32 or 34. They were trying to come down to 28. And that Planning Commission, with the same information that I believe we have now, they got consult from the fire department. The Planning Commission said they didn't think that a waiver for 28 feet was appropriate, that we should compromise. Maybe not go to the 32, but to make it 30. So I'd also ask if these plans that will be presented next week, if they include a 30-foot cartway, and if they do not, how do you all answer to those volunteers of that planning commission who made a recommendation to you based on the same information? And again, I think we're doing it because we're trying to maximize the homes for this developer. And I'm asking you respectfully, as a 30-year resident who owns property downstream, on behalf of all residents who own property downstream, not just myself, to please consider holding them to the standard since there's sufficient land to do so. And it may cost a house, but I think that's an appropriate decision on your part. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are 2 points that we will make specific and clear points to review when they. Thank you.
Mr. President, do you mind, since in 2 weeks this is under consideration for final, preliminary final, do you mind if Ken just walks us through the process on how we landed where we landed today?
Sure.
Just to make sure, and it's important because there's some contradictory statements being made as far as wider roads mean more stormwater management, more runoff, more impact to the community. So a lot of that was behind the thought process by the Planning and Zoning Committee and staff when it was finally recommended to the commissioners. So I think Ken can sort of walk us through that, and so everybody can be on the same page here.
Correct. When we went to the Planning Commission meeting, we had a recommendation from Mr. McAdams' office that 28 feet would be acceptable for the roadway width. We also had a review from the fire marshal saying that 28 feet would be acceptable from a public safety standpoint. So there was no public safety concern, and actually the reduction to 28 feet, as Mr. Bebro points out, results in substantially less stormwater flow from the property because there is substantially less impervious cover with a 28-foot road than there is with a 34-foot road. The Planning Commission did not agree. The Planning Commission felt that 34 was the width that they would like to see. And just so the board understands completely, our residential streets throughout the township are required to be 28 feet wide. So the 28 feet that is being requested and that has been recommended for this project is not substandard. It's exactly what would normally be required for a residential street. The difference is that this street, because there's no safe way to bring the street back out to Orvilla Road, there is that S-turn on Orvilla Road which prevents a typical street intersection and prevents the road from returning back out to Orvilla. It needs to end in a cul-de-sac. And once the street becomes a cul-de-sac street, the ordinance does require 34-foot width. And the thought behind that is that it gives more room for emergency vehicles to traverse a road which only has one access point. And that's the reason that any request like this goes to the fire marshal first. The fire marshal did agree that 28 feet was appropriate, did not have any public safety concerns because there is an emergency access built into the community that would take emergency vehicles out to Orvilla Road if need be. Nevertheless, the recommendation from the Planning Commission was for a 34-foot road. The project then went to the Planning and Zoning Committee, and it went on 2 separate occasions to the Planning and Zoning Committee. The applicant appeared at 2 meetings, I believe in February and March, January and February. The applicant appeared and made the case to the Planning and Zoning Committee that the 28-foot road width was more appropriate for the reasons that I've just outlined, that it's less runoff, it's less impact on the stormwater management throughout the area, and that there are no public safety concerns based on the fire marshal's recommendation. The Planning and Zoning Committee in January asked to defer the discussion until February. It came up again in February. There was a discussion, and it was discussed in detail, and the result was that the Planning and Zoning Committee recommended the 28-foot width and felt that for all the reasons that I've just outlined, that that was the proper width for this street. So I don't think it's correct to say that this was done without any thought, or that this would be a substandard width of a road. This is an appropriate width for a residential street in Hatfield Township. It is not atypical, and it is not. It's not going to result in any sort of a public safety issue, at least based on the fire marshal's recommendation.
Commissioners, just to follow up on that, I think it's important to have Brian or Ken elaborate on some of the waivers that we've talked about over the years. I think that there's some misunderstanding of what they mean and how that's being communicated to certain members of the community. I think it's important for the community to know that when a waiver is made, when it's stormwater related, the intent of the ordinance is always met. The commissioners never waive any certain standards of how water is managed in Hatfield Township. There's other ways to do things, right? Sometimes the projects do not meet the specifics of the ordinance, and the engineers, township engineer and the applicant's engineer may come up with a design that was not contemplated under our ordinance. However, it still meets the intent of all the stormwater management best practices. It still meets all the requirements from the County Conservation District. At not any time did the commissioners ever waive a stormwater management requirement that negatively impacted the community. And Brian, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, just so everybody understands what that means.
Yeah, to Aaron's point, in particular to answer Carla's question, the requirement for the basin side slopes came about when the ordinance was rewritten. I think it was 2012. And when we were rewriting it in order to adopt the more current stormwater management requirements, those requirements specifically focused on release rate, volume control, and water quality. But we also tried to update the other requirements, pipe sizing, the storm piping calculations. We made it actually more conservative. The basin side slope requirement for 4 to 1, 4 horizontal to 1 vertical, that was a request from the Public Works Department with the idea that there would be township-owned basins. They didn't like mowing 3 to 1 basins, 3 to 1 side slopes. They said, could we please make it 4 to 1? That's fine. That's why it's written the way it is. Basin side slopes at 3 to 1 are common everywhere. It's the way, it's kind of sort of a standard, so to speak. Going to a flatter side slope, 4 to 1, 5 to 1, gives you a little bit broader basin. As it relates to the actual sizing of the basin, the broader the slopes are, the bigger the basin has to be. But it doesn't change the required release rates that the basin is designed for. So whether it's 4 to 1, 3 to 1, or if it was modular block walls around the sides of it, it doesn't change how much water is going out of the basin. So it's more of an aesthetic and a maintenance component. And like I said, we put it in at 4 to 1 because the Public Works Department felt it would be easier to mow if they in fact had to mow. As you're aware, I would think 99% of the basins that have been approved in my time have all been privately owned. So it's common for developers and their engineers to request waivers to go to 3 to 1. It is not an unmanageable slope. They are going to be privately owned and maintained in the Bexley development. We had no issue with it. I will say this, that the one basin that's requesting the waiver to go to 2 to 1 slopes is the smallest of the 3 basins that's proposed. And for them to make changes to go to 4 to 1, I honestly do not believe, and we did not look at this, but I don't believe that there would be any change to the density that they're going to have. It would not change the number of houses. If they had to go to 4 to 1 side slopes, they would probably shuffle around the project layout and put lots somewhere else. For this particular design, what they're doing is they're trying to minimize the impact to the wooded area that's near the stream. they made the basins bigger, they would be pushing out towards the stream and closer to the wooded area and actually require more wooded area to be taken down. So from my professional perspective, if we're asking somebody to make a basin bigger and that requires taking down trees, that's kind of counterproductive, because right now we know that what's better for water quality is to preserve as many existing trees as possible. So the compromise here is we make sure that all of the release rate requirements, all of the water quality requirements, all the volume control requirements are met, which we are doing, and we try to look at it from an environmental perspective, minimize how much existing vegetation is being disturbed, and move forward with a better package, instead of just taking down another acre of trees just to make the basins bigger. Because in all honesty, that's what would happen. I can assure you that
Brian, can you talk, when it comes to release rate, right, just so everybody's on the same page? Post-development, the requirements say release rate must be the same or less than pre-development.
correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the basins hold the water, release it at a rate that will be less than or the same as it was before the development. That's the requirement.
That's one of the requirements, correct.
I know the other with
There's a volume control.
quality, water quality. Right. I just want everybody to understand. They're very complicated engineering items that are scrutinized and reviewed for months at a time. And I don't want to just simplify it by a 5-minute comment for everybody to think that there's no thought that goes on behind it. So I think it's important. It's not exciting, but it's important that we have these conversations occasionally publicly.
Aaron, clearly I offended you somehow here with the way you're reacting, and that was not my intention. I am a scientist. I read a lot of technical documents. I was recently retired. I'm not trying to scare people or act ill-informed. What I might like to ask Brian is something you said, where basins that are 2-to-1, slopes are steep, versus 4-to-1, but the release rate will stay the same. How do you do that? Because the physics of when you're in a glass and the sides are high, the water is higher, that forces more pressure. When you're in a wide bowl, like a 4-to-1, I know that the water level is lower and the pressure's not the same. So I'm trying to understand how you're saying that a release rate of a 4-to-1 would be the same as a 3-to-1. How are you controlling that?
Well, without getting too deep in the weeds, I mean, honestly, I want to respectfully answer your question, but I don't know that this is the forum to get into a long, drawn-out conversation about how to design a detention basin. The information is put into computer models, how much runoff is being generated by the ground cover for each respective storm that's analyzed. There are 6 different storms that need to be analyzed. The design engineer puts in the information about the ground cover, about the rainfall intensity. That gets put in. They put in the design parameters for the basin itself, the shape, okay? The area of the respective elevations, that generates a volume. And then what's the end of the design, so to speak, is what's called the outlet structure, okay? The different openings on those structures, thankfully, because of computer modeling, we can do it pretty quickly these days, but the orifice sizes get changed during design in order to maximize how much water is going to stay in that basin and control the rate that the water leaves. So by going through the different modeling and the different iterations, you arrive at different sized orifices on these structures. So that's how a basin that's maybe just a pure cube have a certain release rate going out, and something big giant flat salad bowl can have the same rates going out. It depends on the outlet structure itself, that design. And that design is a factor of the shape of the basin, the complete shape of the basin, because this, keep in mind, this is all 3D, the shape of the basin and the water coming in as compared to the water that's allowed to leave.
Is it fair to say that outlet pipe then would get smaller as the sides got steeper, as we moved from 4 to 1 to 3 to 1?
That is not,
That is not a factor?
No.
Okay. We brought up the trees, so I just wanted to address that, if I may, that more trees would have to come down. If I remember this plan well, over 700 trees are being brought down, 740 perhaps, and that's the delta on what can't be replaced. So they're giving us a monetary amount back for the trees they can't replace. It's just since we've opened the conversation about trees, a lot of trees are coming down that aren't going to be put back. I understand what larger basins would make that worse, but it already is pretty large. And so I thought it was fair that people hear about that as well.
Thank you.
Else? Okay, the second item is the Little Round land development discussion. Over by the,
This is sort of a trip into history here. In almost exactly a year ago, the board passed the approval resolution for Little Round Industries, which is about a 3.5 acre tract on Richmond Road in the industrial district. It's sort of a very, very tired looking building at this point. They want to refurbish the building, put an addition on, put new parking areas in, put new stormwater management in, essentially just dress the entire site up. They're working on a bit of a budget, and when they got their original approval, they weren't ready to pull permits or start construction yet. When they came in to do so, they found out that the approval they got in April of last year was for preliminary approval. It wasn't for final approval. We went back, checked through all of our records. We realized everybody reviewed the plan as though it were a final plan, but the board granted preliminary approval because that's what the original application asked for. So we've since revisited everything. The approval resolution that was passed by the board last April included all of the contribution amounts. They were all agreed to by the property owner, the applicant. It included all of the other conditions of approval, which were all accepted by the developer. And the only thing that will change in 2 weeks is that there will be a new resolution before you, which will have all of the same conditions, all of the same contributions. It will have been accepted by the developer, but it will now say preliminary final on the resolution as opposed to just preliminary, and this will allow them to move forward into construction. Really just housekeeping at this point. All the approvals, the waivers have already been granted. The contributions have already been agreed to. The developer's completely on board with all of that. It's just a matter of dotting that last I and crossing the last T to have that final approval resolution in place.
I recall, this is a nice upgrade.
It's going to make a big difference on Richmond Road. I think everybody's going to be happy with it.
Last one is the Kolzminster Sub Development.
Yes, the Kolzminster is another trip back through history. The Kolzminster property it's actually Kolzminster and Davis properties, two different property owners. Between them, they own 9 different parcels, very small parcels of land on Line Street near the Brookside Manor Apartments. And the proposal is to take those 9 very small pieces of property and combine them and then re-subdivide them into 3 lots. One would have the existing Kolzminster home on it, one would have the existing Davis home on it, and then the third one would be a new building lot. Again, this was all reviewed. It was discussed at a workshop meeting over a year ago at this point. It's been quite a while. And the developer, it's essentially a homeowner who's acting as the developer here. Mr. Kolzminster is one of the property owners. He wants to create a new lot so he can build himself a home. And because he's working on a shoestring, he wasn't ready to move forward with development. And we have finally, we've met with him a few times. We've talked to him about various contributions that are due, and he's finally agreed to accept all of the recommendations from staff as far as contributions for sidewalk, and he's ready to move forward. So we have sent him a new resolution for his signature. We hope to have that back in time for the board to take action on the 28th. So again, it's a fairly simple application when you dig through all the details. There are a lot of details involved in it, but we have managed to work through them with the property owners, and it should be ready for you in 2 weeks.
Did I hear you say the sidewalk issues were resolved?
The sidewalk issue was resolved. I think if you remember this one, originally they wanted a waiver on sidewalks because there were no sidewalks in the area, and then they decided that they would instead install sidewalks. But there was a disagreement between the Kolzminsters and the Davises. One party wanted sidewalks, the other party didn't, and the board ultimately felt that this was not an area where we needed sidewalks, and the board's feeling was that this should move toward a contribution as opposed to actually installing sidewalks, and that's where we wound up. That's where we landed. Welcome.
All for tonight. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to Public Works Committee. Commissioner Lees.
Thank you, Mr. President. So payment number 10 for the cow path on our Villa Road project will be on the agenda in 2 weeks for consideration. Project's coming down to the final stretch. Landscapers are expected to be out there this week and next week. Then the final paving and line striping will take place in the coming weeks. Board will have a quick ribbon cutting ceremony on May 12th before the workshop meeting along with legislators and other stakeholders. Public Works team will be out in full force on April 24th for all of the Earth Day and recycling events happening throughout the township. That's all I have, sir.
All right, thank you. Yes, sure.
Rick Green, 1111 Stoneham Circle. With regards to the Orvilla cow path, it's a fantastic intersection. I'm still trying to remember to get into the left turn lane coming back from the Giant. But I wanted to ask, when is the sidewalk going to be reopened? That goes from the old intersection down to the bridge crossing the stream.
Aaron, do you have anything on that? I don't know.
Hey, Rick. It should be open once the project's going to be completed in the next few weeks.
Okay. So the sidewalk should be open at that same time?
I would imagine. I think there's some of it coned off right now only
Yeah.
because they have to do some of the landscaping and seeding next to it, so they probably just don't want people walking on the mud. So I'd imagine in the next few weeks everything's going to be done, and I know that's part of your path on your run. But
One of them, yeah.
You'll be good to go.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, we're going to jump into Parks and Recreation Committee. Commissioner Zimmerman.
So under programming for Storytime series, our featured book for April is called The Tiny Seed by Eric Carle. Registration is $5, includes the book and an activity kit. Children can read the stories and complete the activity kit individually or do it as a family. And registered participants can pick up their books and activity kits between April and Friday. Email pictures of the family reading and completed activities to storybook@hatfield.org by April 23rd to be included in our Storytime series post. Another trivia night on the 25th from 7 to 8. It'll be virtual though. So register your team and you can participate via Zoom. Prize. Some events that'll be going on. We do have Earth Day coming up on the 24th. We're going to be doing some recycling of hazardous materials and shredding of personal documents at our Earth Day sites. And that's been on the website, so you can check that. It's also on Facebook and social media. The site will collect different items. Public Works Complex will be collecting things like yard waste and cardboard and tree branches and air conditioners, refrigerators, appliances, and so forth, and doing the shredding. Clean Earth will be at their site doing hazardous materials like paint thinners and insecticides, oils, and electronics and batteries. Limit 1 television. Too bad I'm not ready to buy my new TV yet. Just be sure to wear a face mask, stay in your vehicle. The staff will collect your items and follow all COVID guidelines, and lines close at 11:30 a.m. Summer camp. Information about the summer camp program is now available on the website. Read all the information, the handbooks carefully, as there are many new policies, procedures, and protocols for health and safety. We'll also have some specialty camps, partnering with Mad Science and Jumpstart Sports to offer a variety of specialty camps. So it'll be like sports and science and secret agent. There'll also be a virtual camp, so you have that option as well. So check everything out at the website. And registration's open to residents and non-residents alike. And then the Aquatic Center, again, information is all available on the website. You can buy your season pass. Season passes from the website. And again, read all the information because of the many new policies that'll be going into effect once the pool opens. Season pass registration is currently open to residents and non-residents. And that's it for programming and events. Aaron's going to take it away for one last thing, though.
Thanks, Commissioner Zimmerman. Commissioners, we talked about expanding Clements Park now for years. We went through a master plan program process, which we created a vision for the park. We had a grant for the plan. Now, tonight we submit a grant to build the park and expand the park. And let me just show the residents exactly what that may look like. So the plan itself, which was a committee of residents, neighbors, other stakeholders. We had a lot of commissioners involved, siblings and offspring of commissioners involved, as well as 20, 30 other people that came up with the idea of let's make Clements Park better. And so with that in mind, and it's not exactly like this, but very close, and it's not as pretty because it's engineered and with some of my 4th grade Photoshop work. But just to give you a sense on the application, and I just want to make sure everyone is aware. So what we're trying to do with this grant application, and we're applying for DCNR, which is the Department of Community and Natural Resources. The project is about $600,000. We're asking DCNR for $300,000 with a local match of $300,000. And what we're asking the funds for is simply, things aren't inexpensive these days. So what we're asking for and what's included in the 600 is where the entrance is today that goes right through a basin, which none of us understand why that is that way. We're going to remove that. We're going to continue to naturalize that basin. Where the red is will be a significant sized playground that we're lacking here in Hatfield Township, and we hear from young parents all the time, including my wife at home. This will be an inclusive playground for children of all abilities. This will be made of recycled materials. You know, we're trying to increase our chances of the grant by meeting many different criteria, and all of those will help with that. They'll have a parking lot for the people that just want to come and play with your kids. This will be a public bathroom, which is very needed at Clements Park. It'll look just like the one in School Road Park. And then this black area will be a parking area for our partners that we'll talk about more, and we've talked about them a little bit publicly. It was on Zoom over the winter, but our Garden of Health, our new community partner who's going to grow vegetables for low-income families on this lot that was given to the township from Clements Food Group. So all of that is a little over $600,000. The grant maximum is about $300,000. So we'll see these are very, very competitive grants, but we think with our partnership with the nonprofit to help feed the low-income community, with our interest in having a playground for all children, public bathroom, naturalizing a basin for improved water quality, we think all of those things will make this, and we're told from DCNR, which we've already met with several times, that this will be a very attractive application. So we're excited. You know, often in government, you go through a process and you put a plan together. The plan sits on a shelf. It gets dusty. We're taking our plan and we're going to breathe life into it, and we're going to apply for some money, and hopefully in the next few months we'll hear back from them. We've had a really good track record of grants in the last 10 years. So if we can get this, we're talking about dirt moving next year this time, and a new expanded park which will have more accessibility through trails because of some of the new land development projects next door. So we're going to connect parts of our neighborhoods to this park that have never been connected before, that will be able to get there safely with new amenities, and can also volunteer and work with the Garden of Health to grow vegetables for, I could use to eat some more vegetables, but I think we all could. But really, really neat to see the vision come together, thanks to the community members that helped us with the process, and could be really something to be proud of here in the next few years. So, commissioners, and I messed up with the agenda item. Mr. President, if you could ask for a motion to approve a resolution submitting this with the grant application. The grant is due tonight, and it's going to be sent in. We have everything done. We just got to add the resolution to it, which I have printed in the back. So if we could just, if the board doesn't mind approving a motion to approve the resolution, then we can package tonight before I go home.
All right, is there such a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Motion by Vice President Rogers, second by Commissioner Lees. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. And yeah, definitely we'll have that in tonight, which is great.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Commissioners.
Thank you. Great job for putting all that together. Okay, anything else under Parks and Recreation? Okay, Public Safety, County Grant Agreement, Hatfield Fire Company flashers.
Yeah, Commissioners, we talked about this a few months ago as well. This was a successful grant application that we received for $56,000, which you can see it's actually through Montgomery County, and we have a local match of $6,000 that the Township is paying $6,000 and Hatfield Borough is paying $6,000. It's a partnership to help our Hatfield Fire volunteer firemen, which they approached us having some issues backing out when there's a call. So our engineer designed some flashers on the street there that you'll see on Market before it becomes Union there in the Unionville. So this will provide a safety mechanism for our volunteers as they back up and get out for the calls. So we received the grant. This is simply commissioners approving the agreement between the county, the township, and the borough. Before then, we can put the bids out, and this project's moving quickly. So we're hoping commissioners will be in a position to award a bid for this project in the coming months and then have this completed this summer. So commissioners, we can wait 2 weeks, or you can make a motion tonight to approve entering into this agreement with the county and keep it moving.
I looked around, looks like I have a consensus. Why don't we do it tonight? So I will entertain a motion for the county grant agreement with regard to the Hatfield Fire Company flashers. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Lees.
Second.
Second by Vice President Rogers. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved.
Thank you.
We're giving you some homework tonight.
Thanks, Mr. President. That's fine. It's
Late
gonna be
night
late
homework.
night. It's all
Yep.
right.
Okay, nothing else under Public Safety. Finance Committee, Commissioner Andrus.
Just a couple items. As a result of the recent $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package approved by Congress, Hatfield Township will receive $1.7 million to offset some of the losses due to COVID-19 pandemic. The funds will have to meet several criteria set forth by the federal government, and Township staff has been attending seminars to fully understand what type of expenses and reimbursements will be eligible. This will be a several-year endeavor to use the funds, and we will discuss this in appropriate committee meetings and public meetings before any expenses are approved. Residents are obviously missed Hatfield Aquatic Center for 2020 when it was closed. Season sales are off to a fast start. As of today, there are about 192 resident passes sold and 102 non-resident passes sold for almost $80,000. It's still early, and we're hoping that number rises significantly in the coming month.
All right, that's great. Okay, that completes our committee reports. We're going to go into the Township Manager's Report. Aaron.
Thanks, Mr. President. There's going to be a lot of bad puns in this update because this is an explosive topic. It writes itself, though. I'm not even trying here.
Okay, okay, Kristen, next.
Want me to handle it? Yeah.
Sorry, there will be more. Commissioners, just so, and I know you're aware of this, and I know everyone's aware of this, but the fact that no one's here with this on the agenda, don't think that means there's no interest in this topic, because I have heard from, I was wondering what you came out, Rick. So I have heard from more residents about this topic over my 8 years here in Hatfield than any other topic. And what's sad about this topic is that they didn't want to come out tonight because they're afraid their neighbors are going to shoot off more fireworks because they complained about them. So I feel for them. I do. There are some residents here that are hurting and struggling, and it's been hard because there's not much we can do as a local government. And there's definitely some neighbors that are courteous and respectful. However, there are definitely some that aren't. And the some that aren't, for some reason, once they've realized that their neighbors don't appreciate the fireworks on a random Tuesday night, they shoot them off on a random Thursday night and a Wednesday night and a Sunday night. And we have residents with dogs. We have residents with veterans, with PTSD who are struggling right now to live in our community and want to leave. It's sad to hear that. So just a little bit of background. 2017, the legislature lifted the ban on consumer fireworks. In the process, the legislature, like the legislature does, put a 12% sales tax on the firework above the 6% sales tax, so 18% sales tax. It's generated roughly $8 million a year for the state annually since, so keep that in mind. Before 2017, residents in Pennsylvania, as we all know, we can only buy smaller fireworks, ones that don't shoot in the air, and sprinklers. I remember as a kid lighting the little worms that moved over there. I wasn't bothering my neighbor. So ever since the change in law, you probably read about it, and this is not just Hatfield, this is everywhere in Pennsylvania. The complaints have come in regularly and often. Chief knows more than anybody. The one thing I would just want to point out, and just to make clear, and we've been talking with the residents about this, is that right now, the state regulates fireworks. It's similar to hunting. The state regulates hunting. We abide by those rules. The state is the big brother in our relationship. We're the little brother when it comes to any type of laws. If we are not enabled the ability to enact a law, we cannot, right? The state created local governments, and the states tell us what to do. So that's an important concern, and one that our hands are tied. And the commissioners, I know, are hearing from residents all the time. And all we can say is you have to contact your legislature. So a few things that we talked about, and Commissioner Andrus urged me to put this on the agenda tonight after a lot of discussion, and actually all the commissioners at one point or another we have talked about this with. So there is legislation right now in the House Bill 988. It was sponsored by Representative Peter Schweier. He's in Lehigh County. His legislation is repealing Act 43 of 2017. So it's saying let's go back to the way it was, no consumer fireworks. So we can draft a resolution in 2 weeks to support that bill if the board would like. That board is in committee. It needs to get out of committee and go to the General Assembly. Knowing that there's revenue attached to this, I think we can all maybe understand that it's an uphill battle. So then another thought was we could also draft a resolution, and maybe it could be the same resolution that can simply request to our state representative and our state senator to sponsor a bill that would amend Act 43 that would give local government control and the ability to regulate. Right? We have the ability to regulate many things, such as land use and other things in our police powers. We don't have the ability to regulate this. So it's not committing, and I know there's people that love fireworks. I'm from Pittsburgh. We're the home of the fire. We shoot off fireworks for every event. So I get that. So what this resolution could do is simply saying to Representative Malagary and Senator Collette that would like the ability to make our own decisions. We know what's best for Hatfield Township, not necessarily the people in Harrisburg. So that's an option as well, or a combination of the two that I could draft along with Kristen and have in front of the board in 2 weeks, and then we can send it to Representative Malagary. It's my understanding that Representative Malagary is supporting House Bill 988 to repeal. There's been other bills, though, in the past few years that have been sponsored and did not go anywhere. So I think what's important, though, Commissioners, we show our community that we hear you, we care about what you're thinking here, we agree with you, and we want to help. And the only thing we can do to help is to contact our legislators and say, give us the ability to help. And other than that, our hands are tied. The only piece of regulation really that the state besides some common sense things where you can't be intoxicated, you have to have permission by the property owner. You have to be 150 feet from a structure that may be occupied, doesn't necessarily have to be occupied. So it's a very hard enforcement for the police. It's hard to find out where the fireworks are coming from, and it's hard to, then you get into a measuring situation. And the police have done a great job of going out there, but I think what we want to do is encourage, I'd like to promote the resolution, commissioners, through social media. I'd like to encourage residents to show a little bit more respect for each other. Not sure if that works. Usually when people go onto the community page and say things like that, they get devoured. So I'll probably get devoured, which is fine. Would like to do that, and would like to also then encourage them, and I don't want to put more work on Chief Tierney's plate, but would like to encourage them, if they do think that some of their residents are violating the minimal regulations in place, please call 911, because that's really the only mechanism we have to enforce this. And go out and they'll take a peek, and if it's blatant violation, I think the police then can act on that.
Said 150 feet.
Correct.
Well, if you're in a development, there's less than 150 feet between houses, so is that kind of a given that they can't do that there?
A lot of different shaped lots. I've done a lot of measuring on parcels.
Complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear you, Commissioner Zimmerman. You're right. There's a lot of lots you can't shoot them off without question, but there are a lot of places where you have the distance.
I know some of it too, Aaron. I've received several complaints, as you and I have talked about. Residents should really talk to your neighbors first before you call the police and see if they are willing to work with you. Because I know a number of the complaints that I've had, they haven't even gone and talked to their neighbor to say, hey, listen, I have a dog, I have a cat, PTSD, whatever. Could you please not shoot the fireworks after such and such time or whatever? And they haven't even talked to each other. They just called chief, and the officers go out, and we investigated it, and they were in compliance with the law. So there's not much the police department can do. So sometimes just a friendly conversation, a polite conversation with your neighbor might do the trick.
Setting off fireworks is limited by our ordinance for noise, correct? They can't shoot past a certain time, or is that?
10 o'clock.
Or what time is it?
10.
Yeah,
Because they complain about it on the Hatfield page, and I hear somebody shoot it at 10 o'clock every night. Somebody shoots one at 10, because you see the comments on the Hatfield page.
There's an ordinance that prevents them after 10. So the letter I think you're suggesting is, can it be one letter to suggest either adopt to get rid of fireworks, or give us the authority to legislate something locally?
Yep.
That's the letter you're suggesting we should write, or two separate letters? Or legislators?
I think you could include them both in the same.
I'm in favor of that.
Okay.
If they can't abolish it, then we certainly want to have some ability to regulate it.
Yep. Yeah, please.
With any regulation, so much is incumbent upon the people to stand up and be counted, because we could get there, and if it's over with and we don't have a complaint, there's nothing that we can do. We really need input from the public, no matter what the law is.
And residents are fearful that the police will notify or tell the individual that's performing an act that, doing something they shouldn't be, that they think they tell that person, oh, so-and-so snitched on you. And that's not the case.
We wouldn't do that. However, if there's a hearing, they're going to have to appear.
Right.
If not, then it's all for naught.
Yeah. That's the tough part about this. And we had a group of probably 20 people that were going to come tonight, and they decided once they realized it's on, we're televised and it's public, or you could appear in the minutes if you speak, they decided not to. So that tells you how sensitive this is. It's unfortunate.
I certainly think we have to act on it to try and get some action from our legislators, abolish or to allow us to draft some sort of regulation that would be meaningful to the town.
Okay. Thanks, Commissioner.
So, yes, Rick.
You're probably going to be surprised by this. I'm actually on the side supporting the fireworks. And I'll give you a little bit of background. I've been, for the past several years, last year, of course, didn't happen. I've been buying my own fireworks and setting off at a friend's development. Got the distance from the houses, barely. And the first few years, we were just setting them off, having fun. It was all the little sparkly stuff off the ground. Then the law changed. I was able to get some of the simple mortar, some of the stuff that goes off, and we were all having a good time. A neighbor came out and complained one year, I cut my show short. Following year, my friend who was sponsoring this went to all the neighbors and said, hey, we're going to be doing this. You're welcome to come out and join us. Check to make sure everybody was okay with that. So I support, talk to the neighbors is a good thing there. I'm part of an organization called the SCA. It's a medievalist recreationist group. And one big event I go to, we use cannon fire, actual, 16th century, 17th century design, black powder driven cannons as the sound to start and end big battles that are held, because it can be heard across a 100-acre field of, 1,000 people fighting. We had the same concerns there, people with service dogs, people with PTSD, and there were a lot of complaints about the cannons setting that off. We developed a warning system that people can sign up for. When we're getting ready to fire, a warning message gets sent out a few seconds ahead of time so they can, whoever has that issue can prepare themselves for it. It's important for them to get that warning just that few moments before, because their prep they can't sit there and be in a ready, tense state for minutes at a time. Obviously, something like that wouldn't necessarily apply here to people setting off stuff on their own, but maybe, a campaign to the population in general to say, hey, look, if you're setting this stuff off, be aware there are people that have problems with this. Go out to your neighbors, let them know that you want to be sending some stuff off, and we're going to do it, on Tuesday night. And then maybe those people could choose to go out to a movie or something, so they're not in the immediate area right away. From Chief Tierney, I don't know if there's anything that your department could do to help us, because I actually know I see fireworks, through the bay window of my townhouse. The line of sight that I have for it is, I know the neighborhood. I don't think there's anywhere along that line of sight where it's safe for that stuff being setting off, but it's dark. I can't see which house it's coming from. So I don't know if there's anything you could do to help us, help educate how to figure out where it's coming from. Because I know, these people set off 2 or 3 and then they're done. No chance, and even a 911 call is going to get somebody there fast enough. Because I'd like to see this for people who like to do it, to be able to continue to do it. For the people who are bothered by it, can somehow be protected. So, and again, since this is a state legislature, if they give you the option to be able to legislate locally set up something where, okay, hey, weekend nights, people are allowed to do it until 10 or 10:30. Evenings during the week, maybe cut it off entirely, because a lot of fireworks are worthless if you can't do it before or after sundown. From sundown to 10 o'clock is not a whole lot of time during the summer, which is when most of this happens. So I just kind of wanted to give you ideas from that side.
I certainly agree with you, but some of the complaints I've heard, it's a regular weekly event.
Yeah, well, no, it's like the one I see out of my window has been on several weekend or
I gotta tell you, if that's
weeknight
near
evenings.
me, I think I get really frustrated really quick.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're not on mic.
4th of July sort of satisfies my appetite.
Yeah, and that's only time I've set it off. Granted, the last year I've kind of I miss setting it off, but I can't do it on my property. I'm pretty certain I can't get 150 feet from any of my neighbors. But to kind of get that compromise of maybe not during this time of the week, have it as a weekend party thing. Let people, that way people who have problems with it know, hey, Saturday nights I'm gonna have to be a little tense about things, or maybe go out, go somewhere else, to let those people have their limited amount of fun.
Commissioners, I think if all the neighbors were like Rick, I don't think we'd be talking about it here today. I mean, he's very courteous about how he approaches it. We have people that are doing it vengefully and without any thought for their neighbors. By the way, I think Chief was going to budget a cannon for the department next year. I don't know if you can talk to Rick about that.
Well,
So
Make sure it's a shipboard cannon there, Chief.
of course, we wouldn't have it any other way.
So the question posed to us tonight is allow us to put together a draft of a letter for your consideration for the next meeting. Something is.
Yeah, I was probably going to put in a resolution form, Mr. President.
Okay.
Just then we can approve a resolution. It'll be in the minutes. It'll be documented.
Right,
It'll
you
be
did say
a little-
resolution.
Send it to our representative and senator.
And so I think it makes sense to maybe give us Kristen, unless you tell me this is going to be an enormous amount of work in the difference between the two I'm about to describe, and I don't think you will. One version is prohibition, that we support the prohibition, and another version is that we
that we want local control over it, or maybe even a third version that has the two of them together for our consideration, and then we choose which one that we support, so that we take a look at it, because my instinct tells me that this is something that as soon as we walk out of here, between now and the next meeting, someone's going to say something to the five of us and say, I agree with this, I don't agree with this, and it gives us the opportunity to, after hearing input, make a choice of what we want to do. I don't think that would be a significant difference between the
It's going to
different
be
versions.
100 hours of legal time to draft many versions, but we can pull it off.
No, even if it could.
$5 an hour, go ahead.
Even if
At $5 an hour.
Even if locally, the state allowed the local government to clarify the existing laws. You can't use fireworks with 150 feet of an occupied structure. And then it tells you an occupied structure is even a structure that's not occupied. Stupid. So it should be clarified so that people can pick it up and understand what it's
Understand it,
saying.
yeah.
Yeah, and one simple regulation could be lot size. You know, we could say no lots under 3 acres can shoot fireworks, and that eliminates most of the residential areas, and you need to find a bigger lot to shoot a firework. It makes sense. It's something like that, but just an
Not
example. Right, if they work together, yeah, I hear you. It's not simple. Yeah, no, you're right, Rick, yep. It's not easy.
Philadelphia control their own.
What's that?
Philadelphia has ordinances.
Oh. Oh, and they've had a lot of issues with this as
No,
well.
they've had issues, I
Yeah.
just thought they had some.
There was legislation proposed within the last year or two giving cities the ability to regulate, but not local government. It did not get approved though, but that was in the news. But that would have
Philadelphia's
helped
having
us.
firework wars. They're in the streets shooting at each other. Certainly don't need that here.
Shaking my head. Who came up with that idea? Okay, so why don't we approve a couple of different versions? Sounds like 3 different possible versions. We circulate them, and then it'll be next meeting for consideration.
All right, thanks, Mr. President.
Okay.
Thanks, Commissioners.
All right, anything else under the manager's report?
That's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, solicitor's report?
All is well?
Excellent, good, always good to hear. Citizens' comments? Any citizens' comments? Yes? I said this last time when you were here, your husband's got the Villanova mask, so he can speak as long as he likes. Might want to switch masks real quick.
I tell him the same thing too, Tom. Hi, Joan DiMaria. I'm with the Hatfield Township Shade Tree Commission, and I had a question for Commissioner Zimmerman relative to Earth Day. In the past, the EAC, Shade Tree Commission, and the Parks Board all got involved with cleanup at the various township sites. In the last couple of years, we have been down at the Nature Center. And I was wondering, is anything being done or organized this year for that?
Not by the Parks Board, it's not, but individuals are doing it. Do you follow on Facebook?
Yes.
Yes, because we have, well, Carla's going to organize it, and she's working with McMahon as just doing like, a neighborhood thing.
Okay.
And organizing any resident that wants to come along, and she had it on Facebook, and they're taking names.
Because I know in the past, Christine with the township had organized it, and we had scout troops, and
They're not doing it this year.
they are not. Okay. All right. That was my
Or
question.
look for an individual group. Something is going on that day if you want to meet at School Road Park at 9 o'clock. And there'll be just any resident from the whole township that wants to come out and help. We'll decide, which areas of the township we want to go to. And we're going to do something. But
Okay.
it's not going to be through the, not necessarily through the Parks Department or even through the township. It's just kind of some volunteer residents have decided to put something together. And
Okay.
anybody who wants to volunteer, just come on out.
Got it. Thank you.
Joan, if I could, if you don't mind too, hi. I just want to personally apologize because we've been very short-staffed due to COVID. There's been some employees that have staggered some of their shifts, and the volunteer boards, such as the EAC and Shade Tree, I think probably haven't been served as well as they have in the past, which is maybe why you haven't received any communications about Earth Day. It's been a tough few years.
Sure.
So there are community events happening on Earth Day, and there will be a cleanup day at nature area, like Commissioner Zimmerman said. One of our traffic engineer consultants are going to go out and calling all volunteers to come out and join them to help clean up that area. But if you want to reach out to Ashley, there's some other opportunities as well.
Okay.
And you've been fantastic in the past, and all the
Thank you.
boards in volunteering. And it's just been one of those years, so we're
Yes,
doing the best
it
we can.
has.
So, but I apologize.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Yes,
All right.
thanks for asking that, yeah.
Thank you. All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn unless somebody has something else for the good of the order. Motion by Commissioner Andrus. Second by Vice President Rogers. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thanks for coming out, folks.